news, news in the paper, sports, and what she heard on WGN that day. She was a WGN freak. She enjoyed hearing about my day and what I was up to. I liked hearing about what her and Poppy were doing. Grandma has always supported me through the good times and the bad. She always asked about my latest tests or projects in school. She attended my different activities like watching me water ski, announcing basketball games, and encouraging me during my stays at RIC. The last month that I spent with Grandma was a month I will never forget. From asking her if she was okay, if she needed anything, and what she wanted us to do for her. From the beginning of July until this day, it's been a crazy ride. From the early days of her diagnosis until she died. She started off with energy, but was in a lot of pain and starting to get confused. At the same time, she had lots of moments of clarity. When she had clarity, she was very on and focused. We never had a dull moment together. We never got mad at each other. We just had a relationship that can never be broken. She was a wonderful person, and I will never forget her. I love you, Grandma, with all my heart.
I was going to use a microphone, but it's not working, so hopefully Paul will bring it back. Paul Bischoff, I met on the crazy mean streets of Glen Ellen. He was riding his Huffy bike down the street, and he was doing his paper route. And I was like, look at this guy, beautiful blonde hair. He doesn't deserve to go down my street. So I jumped out of these bushes and grabbed his bike. What do you think you're doing? And he's like, oh. And he tells the story way better than I do, but he was so scared, and he just moved to the neighborhood, and that's how I met Paul, what a jerk that I am. So, when I talk about my mom today, I really need to start with my grandma and my grandpa. Buzz Grissinger, as you can see over here on the left, the fine-looking gentleman that he is, was a really interesting person. He was a car designer. A lot of you know some of his stories, but he was a car designer and really into music and he was kind of an egomaniac, really. But I mean, he was very serious, astute. He ate food slower than I've ever seen anybody in my life, and he was in really good shape. And later in his life, he started swimming. And the funny thing is that when he would come to see us for about a month, every May, he would come off the plane with his medals around his arm, smiling. And, he'd come off and we'd just be like, oh my God. But you couldn't give him any crap because he was so proud. Okay, okay, great. So I can walk around a little bit. Okay, so Buzz. My mom adored him. He would come in to our house and stay for a month, and he would do woodwork, and he would tan outside in his bathing suit. He could get away with it. And my mom doted on him, and she would buy him his apricot jelly, which was gross, and wheat bread, and he would just kind of do whatever he wanted, and maybe in the afternoon he'd have a cocktail and play the guitar and so on and so forth. But if you had to take the side of Buzz Grissinger, my mom on the serious side, you'd have to pull that from him and put it inside her. Now, Fern, on the other hand, I know some of you are going to giggle, but Fern was not your typical grandmother to me. Fern liked to chase me around the house with a cigarette in her hand with an ash about that long. And she'd always had this drink with some brown stuff in it, which was bourbon. And she's like, would you sit still? And I remember in 1973, my parents went to Acapulco, and she had to take care of my sister and I. And at that time she was probably 70, and she went batty. I mean, she was like, I think she's like, oh my God, I need to even drink more. Fern was a small woman, and she was funny and loving, and my cousin Mark, who's here today, I love you, Mark. You're a great person. Mark told me a story, came in a couple days ago, and he told me a story, we were talking about Grandma, and she liked to watch, in her 70s, Dukes of Hazzard, Murder, She Wrote. And Mark said, he goes, you know, Grandma would ask me to change the channel. And he's like, I'd get up and change the channel. And then she'd go, okay, well, get your fat ass out of the way. You know, there's one other thing I can't miss her, Fern. She kind of shuffled a little because she fell off this ladder, I think in the 1950s, to go up on a rope. And so she kind of shuffled around, and she'd be like, you know, get out of my way. And all of a sudden she'd just like, she'd just fart. She was so proud of it too. She'd be like, you know, fart. So if you found anything funny about Sally, it was from Fern. His boss was so serious, even though he looks, you know. But my mom adored, my grandma would come in, my grandparents were divorced, and my mom just doted on them, loved my grandma would clean all the drawers in the house, you know, Fern was always busy playing cards, eating cottage cheese with jelly on it, I never understood that, saccharin in her coffee, I don't know what that's all about, you know, smoke, cocktail, and she was amazing. She was a great person, as was Buzz, and she really showed that she cared for him, and that's what I learned from my mom about caring about people and how to respect people. She was there when they both passed away. I remember it. I remember Buzz. I remember her bringing me into the room, and it was just a great moment. She's like, touch his hands. These hands, they built these wood stuff and design stuff, and then she came over and she showed, you know, we stroked his head and touched his face, and it was just such a nice moment just to feel him and just feel, you know, just his whole face and the power of him. And she was proud. She wasn't crying. She was like, no, this is it. This is it. So she loved them so much. And I could not get up here today and speak without talking about Fern and Buzz. And what a funny name. I mean, Buzz and Fern. And right when my mom, another thing is when my mom was getting sick, and I didn't want to be like too crazy about it running around the house, but she has a picture of my grandparents under a tree in 1929 kissing. And I could not find this picture for the life of me. I would have loved to have it here today. But she found this like 15 years ago and showed me, and she was just so proud of it. It was so pretty. Okay, well, I can't talk without bringing up this guy. This is my dad, his senior year in high school. I don't know if anybody knows this. Well, there's a lot of people who know this. My dad, his nickname was Face. And if you know him, he's got a lot going on there. So, you know, my dad and I got to spend a lot of good time together. And, Dad, you really did share some good stories, and you repeated a lot, too. But you kind of told me how you met my... I don't know if you were going down 8 Mile or Woodward or whatever, but you said you saw her when you were driving in the car and thought that Mom was really pretty. But
I can imagine